how do you find the time and energy to do the work, take care of yourself, volunteer for things that are important to you? Like, how do you create that balance in your life?
I don't sleep a lot. That's
Hi, I'm Cami Kaos.
And I am Rick Turoczy, and we are mildly interesting people. Because we're only mildly interesting, we spend our time finding wildly interesting people to talk to so that you're more entertained. And while these folks may not be familiar to you, rest assured, they are famous to us. So we look forward to introducing you to them. Cami, who's our guest this week?
This week, we get to talk to someone who I haven't talked to in a really long time. And so it's super exciting for me. It's not one of those moments where I'm like, oh, I talk to them every day. We're texting constantly. Everything's going on. What if we have nothing to say? This is a person that I wound up writing with on a community blog like 2 decades ago.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And just like happenstance of both Portland and the internet when blogging was still a little bit fresh brought us together. And I have watched her life with interest for the past couple of decades. And we have the honor of running into one another every now and then. And I kind of slide into her DMs to talk about floats because she does awesome stuff. So everyone, this week, I would like to introduce you to the absolutely amazing Angel Jones. Hello, Angel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. It's been a long time since I've talked to you. It's been even a longer time since I talked to you on a podcast.
Yes.
What are you up to?
Everything and absolutely nothing at the same time.
Which is kind of the best.
Yes. If it's not work, then it's trying to figure out self-care, like regimens and what I like to do.
I feel like the world could use an extra dose of people talking about self-care and how they look after themselves and take care of themselves. And I don't know if you feel like you're good at that or not, but I feel like you are really good at putting it out there that it's something that everyone needs to be doing, that we're not just these fully formed humans that come out as perfect adults and are calm and tranquil. So I want to talk about floating a little bit, if that's okay. You're like my floating expert.
Yeah, I love floating. Oh my goodness, I've been doing it for probably, it's getting close to 10 years now. I can't remember how I got into it, but I went to float on for the first time. Like I said, it was 10 years ago and just have been progressively doing it. And last week I had the week off from work for the holiday break. And so I went floating 3 times that week. And it's just a nice way to be by yourself, self-imposed isolation, no, phones, no digital, nothing. You're just in the dark and you're listening to, your breath and how your heartbeat goes and all the different functions of your body, and you get to be in water, and it's just really relaxing. And I usually fall asleep, but then I wake up and go back out, and it just feels like, okay, I can take all the day now. And I wish I could do it every day, but I can't. But because it's a bear to deal with my hair and washing that all the time with all the salt out. But otherwise, I love it.
So for those of our listeners who don't know, because I mean, floating is many things, including a verb. But literally what you're doing is floating in a tank of water.
Yes.
Tell us what the setup.
Yeah, so there are various isolation tanks, and some people call it sensory deprivation. That's kind of like the outdated term now. It's more of the isolation tank. It's like the new modern term that's used to describe it. But essentially, it's being in about less than a foot of water that's been treated with about 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So you literally float. You cannot drown. It's very salty, and it has the relaxation effects from the Epsom salt on your muscles and kind of relaxation. And with it being enclosed, and I choose to go to an enclosed tank versus an open pool. It's in a completely darkness, and the water temperature is about the same as your body temperature. So you just kind of don't really keep track of where your arms and appendages are. So it's just really nice to take away all the extra things you have to think about. And then that just gives you time to either meditate or zone out, sleep, whatever you want to do. But just being able to be alone by yourself, not having to like have any other expectations on what you're going to do in the tank is just really relaxing for me.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Altered States with William Hurt? I'm like, that's why I've never done it. I might be a werewolf or something. I don't know what's going to happen.
So
they actually, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you please go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's funny because Float On actually sells that DVD in the shop. So they're in on a joke. It's great.
Nice. That's excellent.
I think it's something that I know you and I have discussed because I'm like scared obsessed with it. I'm like, I know it won't be scary. I love water. But it's just that initial like introvert impulse to not go and do something new. And so it's been on my list to do. And I am on a self-care mission right now. So I am putting it in a little notebook I have that makes me do things. And so I will finally go book a session because I'm really excited about it. Yay. You mentioned you can meditate, you can zone out, you can do whatever. What was the initial appeal? Like, how did you, it's just such an interesting thing that I think a lot of people, also super privileged, to acknowledge that we're living in Portland where
Absolutely.
we can just go do this. There are not a lot of places, I'm sure, in every city where you can just go and get your float on and have that time to yourself. I love that you mentioned that we're pulling away from calling it sensory deprivation, because sensory deprivation sounds like torture to me.
Yes.
And this sounds like the exact opposite of torture. So just like, yeah. What?
Yeah. I think I got into it. I think it was just more of that sounds interesting component to it, really. And then once I did it, and the first time I went to, they have open pools that don't close you in. It's just, you're just turning off the light and you're just sitting in a pool by yourself. So I did that for a while for the first few times to kind of get acclimated. And then I went into one of the tanks, and I have never gone back to open pool. So yeah, it's been great. I think it's just really being able to try something new and just kind of check it off the bucket list type of thing. But then I actually liked it, so that's why I kept coming back.
I think this is a great time to segue over. You're kind of an adventurous human.
Sometimes.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm kind of boring. I don't know.
We're the mildly interesting people. You're the wildly interesting one.
We brought you on because we think you're hella cool. We're boring. I think everyone thinks that they're boring, though. I mean, your life is your lived experience. So what you do every day, you're like, oh, I've got to get up and be glamorous again. This is so tragic. I've got to go to another wonderful restaurant with my doting husband and travel the world and listen to great music.
Yes.
You might not think you're adventurous, but I do. And so maybe you can't answer this question, but like, what planted that seed of, you're such a curious and alive individual. And I'm just wondering what keeps you curious.
I honestly think it started in where I grew up. It was a small town, and once we got cable when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and seeing like MTV and all these other cable stations that were out, and just seeing like what else was out there and listening to music that was completely different than I grew up on. It wasn't on the radio. It's just like, wow, okay, there's other stuff out there. Cool. And then going through grade school and middle school, high school, the regular perfunctory things, and just being like, this is not where I want to live for the rest of my life. And so once I got to college, being able to do the study abroad program was just like, that was my first time on a flight, was going to another country, which is insane.
Wow.
So being able to go to another country, speak a different language, go to university in France, and being able to live that for like 6 months was really great. And that kind of like, I think, planted the seed of like, okay, I don't have to go back to my hometown and go work at whatever. I can in an office. I can go anywhere. I just need to figure out how I want to do it and where I want to go. But that, I think that really planted the seed, is like just knowing that there's other stuff out there.
Yeah.
That kind of brings me to another experience. We don't like to really talk about people's work life as much on here, but it's so rare for me to run into a product marketing person. Like, it's almost like one of those lost arts. Like, what got you on the path to that role and consistently playing that role for organizations?
Yeah, so I've been in product marketing for a little bit over 4 years now, and it just happened by happenstance. And that the role I was in before was on the customer success side and working with customers. And at the position I was at the time, there was an opening for a product marketer on the marketing team. So I sent I think it was a Slack to the VP of marketing at the time, saying, "Hey, I saw you're looking for candidates. Are you still interviewing?" And threw my hat into the ring. So it was just more of a combination of I understand both perspectives of how to market to people and then the buyer personas and making use cases and documentation, but also understanding what the customers are looking for as far as like pain points and value propositions of getting value out of a product. And this is more for SaaS and technology more than anything else. So that's been my experience. But yeah, it was just one of those things. And I was there for in that role for about a year and a half, and then moved on to other roles. But yeah, and then now I've really focused more into a subsect of product marketing, which is competitive intelligence. And that's just really been a sweet spot for me in being able to really understand how businesses can maintain competitive stances as the market gets really crowded and companies get bought up or they change and add on new products and solutions, and just being aware. And it kind of feeds into, I love reading, I love researching and learning more about things and answering those questions of why. So it just helps me position myself as kind of a strategic expert within a company and being able to show, okay, great, here's your product roadmap, that's great, here's what they're also doing. So making sure there's an eye to what the outside market is looking for, and also what the customer needs are changing and evolving, and how we can continue to maintain our competitive nature with other solutions coming on the market.
Don't ask questions, Rick. I have deep well to go into. Can you repeat what you were talking about with the intellectual competition and finding out information? It sounds like corporate espionage. Like, it sounds like you're a spy. I admit we were watching Mission Impossible last night, and so my brain is like, do.
It kind of is, but not as adventurous.
Okay.
I'm not jumping off cliffs to find, I can see your building now. I can see your whiteboard.
It's really me. I'm Angel. But it's not the wrong sense. Like, it feels like you're like, I mean, it's the British secret agency and then the CIA, and then we've got rogue agents. And like, is that intellectual knowledge that like really locked down? Is it like they're super secrets?
Sometimes, I think it definitely had that kind of sneakiness to it, but there's definitely a push more for ethical competitive intelligence. Okay. And so you're not giving a fake name, signing up for a competitor's webinar, for example. You're giving your actual name, the company you're working for, and if they block you, it's like, oh, well, but sometimes they don't block you, and we don't block them. And it's kind of that friendly nature. And especially if you're in a niche space within the software industry, you're going to see the same people and over again. You're probably going to work for different companies in the same space. So I think it's just more of maintaining that competitive knowledge and also knowing that pricing and things like that will always change and always never be fully documented because contracts and things like that, depending on the vendor you're using, will change. So that information isn't really as helpful, I think, as people want it to be. I think it's a nice as a benchmark of like, this is what they're charging, here's what we're charging. But otherwise, like, kind of ongoing maintenance of that, I think, is kind of trivial. I think it's really looking at what customers are looking for and what their pain points are and who's delivering the value to them as fast as possible.
Nice. All right. I have another side question based on personas. Customer profiles are so fascinating to me, but I get sucked into like the details of it, and then I'm like, which persona am I? And like I start to like psychologically evaluate these, and I try to figure out who people are. So talk to me about the less adventurous, more practical side of those customer personas, because that's just something that's like, it's like fiction to me. It's like you're writing a novel, but you're doing it for marketing reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just really getting to understand what's going to make, if you're targeting your product to like a financial person, like a chief financial officer, what's going to make them pay attention to you over someone else? What's going to make you feel like, okay, I'm going to be their champion and make them better? Like when I was in customer success, I always thought about, I want to make sure that whenever my customer is up for a raise, I can prove that, here's the value they're getting, and that's giving them a sense of value to their company. I want to make sure they look good to their bosses or to their, CEO. So that was always my mission when I was customer success. And so I kind of take that when I'm thinking about product marketing, I kind of translate it over to that and thinking about how can I make sure that how we market a product to a CFO or whomever that key market persona is, we're thinking about what challenges they're currently experiencing now. How can our product make them more successful and make them be seen as valuable within their company? We want them to be seen as linchpins within their company.
Nice. Still espionage.
Yeah.
You're still a secret agent in my brain.
Well,
doing nothing to deter me.
I don't know if you engage in any of this, but so I was never in product marketing or competitive intelligence, but I sometimes had to play that role because at early stage startups, you play whatever role they tell you to play. Like one of my favorite and most insightful engagements was actually loss analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Like calling a customer after they've dropped your product and being like, I'm not going to try and sell it back to you. I just want to know, like, did you go to a competitor? Did you go, did the product just not satisfy your needs? And I think someone, needs a certain level of curiosity to really interrogate that issue in the right way. And I'm so happy to just see your empathy and curiosity kind of combining into this role of competitive intelligence. That's super interesting.
Yeah, I love talking to customers. Like win-loss analysis is so critical. I think it's definitely one of those underrated skills that a lot of software companies, especially early stage and mid-stage startups, kind of neglect, because that's how you propel. Especially if you're a smaller startup and you're going after a company that's already well positioned. And I won't say any of my former employers because one of them is very known in the market. So just one of those things where, you're thinking about how do you compete with X company? Well, start talking to the customers you've lost to or you're winning, and figuring out how do you repeat that process? How do you make a recipe that's repeatable and not just something that's like, I get to the kitchen and kind of just whip it up every time. Like it should be consistent. That's how you continue to grow and get more customers that are similar to what you've already done.
So she's saying you can't cook the way that you market and work, Rick. Rick's cooking. You described Rick's cooking style perfectly. I just go in the kitchen. I make some stuff. I will never make this again.
I'm sure it could be delicious, but sometimes you want to replicate that deliciousness.
But there's no consistency. Yeah, there's like, I don't even know what to call it.
Every time is the first time. That's how it works.
Is it okay if we switch gears a little bit, Rick?
Fine with me.
I want Angel to tell us about the Raphael House of Portland.
Yes.
Of which she's on the board of directors now in all of her spare time.
Yes. I got involved with Raphael House. I attended one of their charity events. They did a fundraiser way before times, like maybe 2015, 2016, and just really appreciated the mission. And they provide services to those going through domestic violence situations across the Portland metro area. And so I am a survivor of domestic violence in the past. And so that mission was already kind of close to my heart. But just seeing how they run the shelter, the different services they offer multilingual services as well. So just knowing that there's a lot of diverse populations who are seeking out help and may not have strong English skills, knowing there's another resource there for them to go to. And so over the years, it's, I donated money and went to, different events and different charity events for them to support them. And then last couple of years, I just started getting a little bit more involved. And last spring, I went through the DV advocacy training program that Raphael House does through the state of Oregon. And it's about 40 hours of training and kind of just going from the basic level of understanding what is domestic violence up to the different types of domestic violence. Because I think people usually focus on the physical acts and not necessarily the emotional and financial abuse that goes on, particularly those who are moving into this country for the first time and may not have immigration status or be scared to seek out things because of their immigration status, or really being able to have the services available and seeing all the different components of why people don't speak up, or here are the resources to call, to really being to share that space with other survivors and other folks on the Raphael House team. The team is so amazing. That was probably the best part of joining the board is being able to see the folks who run the nonprofit day to day and just cheering them on from the side. And the board of directors is amazing. And so I'm just really proud to be on the board and being able to help serve and guide the organization.
First of all, thank you for doing that work because it is such an icky topic. It is such a horrible thing. People who have been through domestic violence, whether physical, mental, emotional, financial, or it's awful. It's an awful thing to experience, and it's something that no one really wants to talk about.
Right.
As a survivor, it's not something that you want to talk about. If you know a survivor, it's not something that you want to talk to them about. It's just ugly, and it needs to be fixed. But everyone wants to. Shh, no, it's not something. Polite company, and so they're raising awareness of the problem is fantastic. And I didn't know that you were involved with them until I read the little intake form, and I was like, of course she's doing another amazing thing. What I really liked that you said was that what you're enjoying is being around all the people. And I enjoy that we have an opportunity for you to say, hey, look, these people that are doing these amazing things, they're actually just cool people. I feel like a lot of times people are like, oh, if it's someone who's on a board of that, it's because they're so damaged and broken and they did this and they did that. And it's the only thing that they think about. And time again, when we experience humans who work with nonprofits and who are building these kinds of relationships and bettering our community, it's usually just amazing people with a lot of empathy who may have been through something horrible, but just being able to publicly say, hey, I went through this and now I'm working with people to provide a better path forward for others who have is amazing. And I just have so much gratitude and respect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the board of directors is really diverse in that regard, in that some of us are survivors, some of us know survivors from our family and friends or our network. And so there's definitely that shared empathy of understanding what people are going through to make that call. And it's really scary, and knowing that first, 24-hour period of moving away and leaving that situation is really dire. We understand what that's like, and in being able to have the resources available within the county and the city to help people break out of those situations. And sadly, some people don't make it. And we see on the news when those stories come up. And that's something that I think a lot of us, keep top of mind when we think about the reason why we want to continue supporting organizations like Raphael House in the area. And there are other organizations that are part of the network, but it's just one of those things where just seeing how valuable, and especially I think after coming out of the pandemic and people kind of going back into their day to day, I think that was one of the reasons why actually I really started amping up my involvement, because I was realizing that if you're in a dire situation, you have nowhere to go because it's a pandemic right now. Yeah. What happens to you? Where do you go for resources? And so really making sure that, one, people get educated about what's out there, and also two, thinking about how do we get more support, not just financial, but just like emotional and empathy about understanding different situations and lived experiences people go through. I mean, there are people on the board like myself that if I didn't tell you about it, you would never know. You know, I am a senior product marketing manager at a software company. You would never think, you know, that history. And it's other people on the board who are senior levels at their respective, you know, corporations, and you would never think. And I think it's kind of dispelling that myth of you have to look a certain way, or a certain economic status that's involved, or immigration status. That's not true. So I think really helping breaking down those kind of perceptions that people may have about domestic violence victims and kind of the lived experiences, it's very different.
Yeah.
I always appreciate the culture of Portland that is very much a work to live kind of community, that it's like we seek, you know, I find that many people in our community are always seeking that balance. It's not a singular focus. But I would just love to hear from you, like, how do you find the time and energy to do the work, take care of yourself, volunteer for things that are important to you? Like, how do you create that balance in your life?
I don't sleep a lot. That's, you know, I'm a lifelong insomniac, so I think that helps. And as far as finding more time in the day physically to do things and think about things, but I also, I definitely take advantage of technology as far as like keeping notes on my phone and following up on things and tracking through email and Slack and things like that. So I think I figured out a way to make sure that it doesn't take a lot of time, and I can be smart about what time I do allocate. And I'm also upfront with like my employers as well, as like I volunteer for X, and so I may be offline for 2 hours going to a board meeting, and you know, just making sure they're aware. And I fortunately work for employers that are open and are supportive of service, and within your respective communities, so that helps too.
That's awesome.
How much don't you sleep? So you're talking to a give me at least 10 hours a night sleep person, and give me no more than 6, but probably 4 hours a person. Like, our sleep schedules are completely, like, what we need as humans is completely different. And so I am amazed by someone who's like, I just don't sleep. I'm like, really? I only slept 10 hours last night, and I would like to sleep for 2 more.
I love sleep. I just, for whatever reason, my brain gets to like 2 a.m. and is going, okay, let's get up. There's a new day. Let's go. And for better or worse, you know, my body is just going, brain, chill. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. There's absolutely nothing that has to be done right now that cannot wait for another like 6 or 7 hours. But unfortunately, my brain wins sometimes. So I just get up, and that's usually when I'm reading or listening to podcasts and just being able to take advantage of the time. So I'm not just ruminating, and, you know, just making sure I'm using the time as I can. And then I try to doze off. I have a lot of sleep tools now. I have like sleep podcasts to listen to, and I have like different apps and things like that. I have like different sounds to try to get back to sleep, but sometimes it doesn't work, and I just have to get up and do something.
When I don't sleep, it's the same thing. I'm like the precious sleeper. I have 3 pillows to have the exact right sheets. The blankets have to be right.
Yes.
I have cave water noise that I listen to. I have to make sure like an alarm might not go off. I have like all of these notifications on my phone set. I was like, this can notify me, but this can't notify me.
Yes.
And then sometimes I do wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and my brain is like, let's go through everything. Let's talk about everything you've done for the last 3 years, Cami. Evaluation time. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's no reason to do any of this. And they're like, yeah, remember 3 years ago when you walked into that restaurant and you couldn't find the bathroom, even though the bathroom was very clearly labeled and right there. So I understand the sleeplessness.
Yes.
And I applaud that you've gone through lengths to like make your sleep environment more cozy. It's one of the most important things. When we moved, the first thing I did was like, the bedroom has to be ready. I have to have complete perfect bedroom in order for me to sleep. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Now I want to move back to the pandemic, if it's okay, because you're an adventurous person. As we've said, you travel, you go out, you try lots of restaurants and places. And then the pandemic hit. What was your life like in February of 2020 versus April of 2020?
February 2020, I was going to shows. Actually, the last show I went to was March, I think it was like 7th or 8th of 2020. And then like 5 days later, everything shut down. I traveled to LA to see a band, Serotones. They were playing, and then came back. And that's when I noticed people were wearing masks on the plane. I was like, okay, this is picking up here. Okay, this is a thing now. I was paying attention, obviously, but it wasn't in my purview. And then getting back into the airport, and I went through Burbank to PDX, and just seeing people wearing masks and going, okay, this is serious. And then getting back, and I think that Wednesday of that week at work, they're like, everyone's going home. You're going to work from home going forward. We're going to just do this for the next month and see what happens. And obviously the month turns into, over a year. But yeah, it was just kind of normal. I was just going to shows, just going out, just hanging out with friends, and going into an office environment. So I was working in an office in downtown Portland at the time. And then everything shut down. And it became really hard to find different things to grocery store, paper products. And I was ordering from this restaurant warehouse site to get flour, because that was like the big thing. Everyone's like making bread recipes and stuff. So it was like I found this recipe at this restaurant site that was selling bulk packages of flour. So I was buying like 10-pound sacks of flour and like other grains, because I was thinking, okay, well, if I can't find it at the grocery store, I'm just going to order from this site, and they shipped it to me, no problem. And then going to office supply stores for paper products, because I guess people weren't thinking that Staples sells toilet paper for offices, and I was going there to get TP. So yeah, the things like that was just wild.
How long did it? So similarly, we were like, everything's normal. I was on business trips. My last business trip was the end of February to the beginning of March. I wound up flying home early. Same thing, masks on everyone in the airport. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Everything is closing down. I wanted to buy some hand sanitizer in the airport. They're like, we're sold out. And I was like, you're sold out of hand sanitizer?
Yes.
They're like, yes, everyone is sold out of hand sanitizer, princess. And I was like, okay, I get it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry for being an asshole. Thank you. But then like we were super fortunate. We have our toilet paper delivered from a place called Who Gives a Crap, who makes environmentally sound toilet paper. And I was like, I feel like I'm hoarding toilet paper, but I'm not, because I always just order a giant case of toilet paper. But also, let me get on the list, because suddenly even they were sold out, and I was like, I need to make sure that like we got auto renew, because suddenly things that made no sense to be gone were gone. Flour, rice, beans. Like you couldn't buy dried foods in Portland. I went to a market that has like bulk food, because I was like, I'm going to buy a bunch of dried beans and some rice. And no, I was not. Sure. Did you ever have the sense that, oh my God, maybe this is the end of the world? Or were you just like, we'll ride this out and it'll be fine in a few months? Oh my gosh, that's very doom and gloom. I'm in a doom and gloom place. I'm going to embrace it.
No, I don't know if I necessarily thought it was the end of the world. I definitely thought like, okay, this is a major thing. Like that, this is a global thing. It's like I can't remember another time where entire globe was like infected like this, and so I think that was like, whoa, this is not just a US problem, it's a global problem, and how are we going to fix this? And that was unnerving. And then fast forward a few months, and then there's protests happening, and like that was a whole nother ball. And then we had the wildfires and the orange sky for a few weeks, and so it was just a lot for 2020. And I think
those of you not from Portland,
yes,
Portland went through everyone went through the pandemic, but there were wildfires. Parts of Portland were in the be prepared to evacuate stage. So it wasn't just the outlying area. Rick and I were in I think it's level 2, where they're like, you don't have to leave right now, but you have to be packed and ready to go.
Be ready to go. Yeah.
And you couldn't breathe. People were like hoarding air filters and putting them on box fans to filter air in their homes. You couldn't buy air purifiers. You were trapped in your home unless you had to leave immediately, and then you had no place to go because it was a global pandemic.
Yes.
And there were people rioting in the streets of downtown Portland at the same time for political reasons. So yeah, Angel, spot on. 2020 was a lot for a lot of people, but in Portland, I was like, this feels like 10 different incidents all happening at the same time, and I give up. Yeah. But you didn't give up. Like I watched you on social media, and you were always just like, yep, here we go.
Yeah. And I think part of it was kind of trying to cheer myself up and not get, because I think it's really easy when all of that's going on to just be like, okay, this is my fate. And, and I thought, well, there's other things I can be doing. So, I mean, I remember before we figured out like what type of masks were helpful. People are making masks out of t-shirts and things like that. So I was like going through my closet and pulling out old t-shirts and going, I can cut this up. I can make masks and I can sew and all this kind of stuff like that. And like I make bread, and because we couldn't find bread in the grocery store, so I was making loaves of bread every day. And my partner was still going into the office to work, and so it was kind of that nerve-wracking of, okay, you're only in office like 4 other people, but like make sure you're wearing your mask and your little t-shirt mask, because we didn't have like actual masks yet. And so it was just kind of nerve-wracking. And I think that was kind of like a coping mechanism, is like I can just do other stuff outside of, focusing on work, because I didn't want to be one of those people that became a workaholic during a pandemic. So that actually helped me break away. So I think in some regards, back to kind of like the floating question, and I think that definitely helped with like the self-care and being able to have a delineation of, if I'm going to be working from home, I need to like make space that is just work, and then the rest is for home life. And so that actually helped make that distinction for me, is just having, because I couldn't go anywhere else. I was working at my desk that was in my home. And then, I move away 6 feet, I'm in my kitchen. So like making sure I have that space and I can mentally block off, like, this is only for work. This is the only place I'm going to do work. I'm not going to go into the kitchen and sit down and start working. I'm going to focus on my desk. And so I think that really helped to make that distinction for me.
Are you still remote, or are you in the office again?
I'm still remote. Yeah, I travel quarterly. My company is headquartered in Chicago, so I travel quarterly to Chicago. To be on site in the office, but otherwise I work remote full time.
You liking it?
I love it. I've worked remote before, in the before times, so it was not a problem. I've worked at offices. I worked remote. I actually prefer working remote and then doing kind of the quarterly visit to meet up with people versus going into an office day to day.
Yeah, that's no good.
What did you do about the floating during that time when everything was shut down? Did you just skip it? Did you try and approximate it at home? Like how did that affect that part of your life?
I skipped it. I kept my membership because I wanted to do my small part, because I was fortunate that I still had a job, so I could still, afford to keep the membership. So I kept the membership, and they just kept rolling over the credits. So I have so many credits of from that year and a half I didn't float. But yeah, that actually led me into other types of meditation and yoga. I have my little home yoga studio off to the side here with different mats and blocks and things and straps and whatever. So I was doing like YouTube yoga channels, just figuring out which ones I liked, and different like exercise channels and meditation channels. So I got really into that. A lot of YouTube videos were consumed, finding out the right workout and kind of like what I wanted to do, the right like length of time and when I wanted to do it part of the day. And, and then I have a little pedaler underneath my desk. I can pedal while I'm working. So just different ways to kind of keep active. And unfortunately, it's not the same as going into an isolation tank, but it was something to kind of help keep my energy going.
Yeah.
Rick, is it time for the mildly interesting questions?
I think it may be. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. All right.
I'm ready. All right. Angel, I'm going to ask you 4 questions that I ask every guest that comes onto the show this season. And then we're going to roll a die and pick your last question.
All right.
If you get stumped, you're allowed to pass, but there's no time limit. So we will come back to whatever question or questions you pass. Just, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Question number 1. What habit would you like to pick up over the next year?
Oh, improving my sleeping. This is
Yay.
like, I don't know how I can force myself to sleep more, but just really helping my body realize like this is a time to rest, because I'll get into bed. I'll go to bed at the same time, as far as like the hygiene component of like I'm washing my face, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm doing all these things, and I get into bed. But then it takes me like an hour and a half to actually fall asleep. So like being able to shorten that window without feeling like, okay, I have to get up. Because if I get up, then I'm going to be like, ugh. So I just really working on my sleeping habits.
Good. I like that. I have so many thoughts that I'll send you that are unsolicited that might help, but sleep means so much to me. Okay. Would you rather know a little about a lot of things or a lot about one thing?
I would say probably a little about a lot of things, because then at least that way I can dip my toe in, and then if I need to know more information, I can dive in a little bit more.
Nice.
But I think, tying back to what I do for work, competitive intelligence, I know a lot about a little bit of everything, as far as like what a competition is doing, what different vendors are doing. But then if someone asks me to do a deeper dive, I already know like, okay, where to start. So I think that's helpful.
Nice. That's an excellent and very thorough answer. Question number 3. What do you need from the grocery store?
Ooh, my partner needs more cheese.
Oh, you always need more cheese.
Always need more cheese, because it's been so hot this week. So I've been eating a lot of like cheese and crackers and kind of like light snacky things. I eat a lot of cereal, so actually I need cereal.
Cheese and cereal. What kind of cheese, out of curiosity?
He likes the sharp white cheddar that Tillamook puts out.
Oh, Tillamook.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Question number 4. Would you like to survive the zombie apocalypse?
Probably not. I don't think I'd make it. I'm not a great runner.
Oh, yeah, no, me neither. I'm an indoor only zombie apocalypse Cami. So, yeah. Okay, nope. And then question number 5. I'm going to roll this beautiful blue die, which is the one that I pulled for you, and I will send it to your home as a keepsake. And we have pulled the number 8.
Okay.
You can see that?
Yep.
Okay, question number 8. Which Monopoly piece would you fight for?
Oh, probably the dog, the terrier.
Nice.
Nice answer.
I love dogs, so yeah, probably terrier.
Would you? Okay, that's a good one. These props for this question go to Rick. You came up with that one, the terrier.
That's an old one.
And you had the answer. Like, you were ready. When I had that question, I was like, I don't know.
Monopoly?
I play My Little Pony Monopoly. Can I pick a pony? Excellent. Rick, would you like to wrap up the show for us, please?
Of course. Absolutely. Angel, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show and to learn more about you. You and I have been internet friends for ages, ever since the early blogging days around here, and have consistently followed one another on any number of random social channels. But it's just really amazing to get the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you just chatting, and there's so much more we would like to talk with you about, but I'm glad we got to cover off on some of the things we did. Your curiosity and passion about everything you do just kind of comes through as we were having this conversation, and we just really appreciate you taking the time not only to share that with us, but to share that with the folks who are watching the show. So thank you very much for coming on and spending time with us.
Thank you so much for the kind words, and yeah, this has been really fun. Thank you.
It occurs to me before we go, I think that I may have known Angel longer, and Rick may have known Angel longer than Rick and I have known each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
like just on an internet level.
Yeah. Internet friends level.
Yeah, that just occurred to me. So yeah. Okay, well, wow. Thank you so much for joining us, Angel, and thank all of you for joining us as well. I hope you found something that sparked your curiosity today. Now I feel like I'm on a morning talk show.
And we'll be right back after these words from your favorite breakfast cereal or whatever.
Angel's favorite breakfast cereal.
Okay, there you go.